the like traditional path to get work doesn't seem to be there, but it's a lot more powerful and a lot easier to tell a personal story by kind of twisting it into something fantastical. And if anything, it helps people relate to it. It's a hard industry to like make money in. You're gonna make more money being a barista than you will being a music video director at a certain point. A friend of mine who works at a different agency said he was bringing coffee to his boss, and his boss was watching my film on his computer.
Oh my god.
Who's like one of the executives at this talent company. We have an office on the back lot at Universal, and so we've just been like meeting there, you know, talking about like feature concepts and
Teddy, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Excited,
Welcome
man.
to the show.
And you are a USC film director who's gone to so many festivals and now is en route to graduate and go into Hollywood for real.
Yep.
That is super exciting. How do you feel about graduation? And
I mean, it's kind of crazy. I feel like hopefully it's not too hard of a transition. I think the industry's in an interesting place, and so the like traditional path to get work doesn't seem to be there, but there's been a lot of like independent filmmaking, you know, kind of indie commercial and music video stuff, which, you know, I have a foot into that, so that's kind of where everything's going to start. But it is, you know, USC's very formal film education, and I don't know if there's a formal film path anymore.
okay. And I'd love to ask you, like, what do you think is now like kind of the path if you want to break into Hollywood as a director?
I think you just have to make stuff. I think people value that and appreciate it. It is interesting because, you know, we're in film school, and you could have a professor that has 50 years of experience, but the industry's only 100 years old, so they started only halfway through the existence of the entire industry and might have a lot of good insight, but their origin story is just not possible anymore. And so, you know, that's kind of, it's like I wouldn't know the answer, but I do know sometimes the advice you get from other people just might not be true, just because you can't become a stagehand on a TV show, you know, at 20 years old, and then you get hired by the producer and then you run the studio. Like, I just don't think that's where people, the industry has shrunk, and whether it's nepotism or just budgets getting smaller or certain productions getting more bloated, it's like, I think if you want to direct, you should just do it and not worry about that ladder necessarily.
Right. And you've been making stuff ever since, like, in high school, right? Is that when you started?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, seriously, but if I went back to when I was, like, 5 years old even, like, I had my dad's camera that I would steal and just, like, invite my friends over and force them to be in stuff. And, like, I didn't know how to edit, so I just, like, hit record. If I didn't get it right, I would just delete the clip, and I would do screenings where I'd just scroll through this camcorder, like pressing play on each clip. Wow. And that was like, I mean, I was in the middle of elementary school, so, you know, I was probably like 8 years old the first time I like made a short film or something. I didn't even know to call it that, but it's just kind of been like forever.
That's awesome.
How did you go about like learning the craft elements before you went to USC? Like, what was it like learning like the different aspects of it?
I got really lucky. I went to this public middle school called Milliken, which is in the Valley, and I just heard they had like a film elective there. So it was a class you could take. I mean, this is like middle school. I didn't even know that was like a thing people did at that age. And I ended up taking this class and had this incredible teacher who took it really seriously. And like we were learning, you know, like all the fundamentals. We were like, I remember the first day was 180 degree rule, which like it made no sense to me because I'm literally like a sixth grader. But you just kind of like got all these fundamental things in to the point where it's kind of funny because I ended up coming to USC, and the entire first year of USC, I was like, I heard all this stuff when I was like 12 years old. It's a very LA experience. I realize like most people aren't getting that kind of thing.
Right.
There's Miss Bennett, a middle school teacher, and that's kind of like where that's I think like the transition from like it was like a fun idea to be like, there's like a science to this that I can get behind.
How was your experience at USC Film School, you think, after, having all that education previously?
I really like being in college. And I think when you're in film school, you just like being with people who have the same interest is really important. And you're going to meet a lot of people who you can collaborate with. Yeah. I think the program, I think I always thought of myself as a director. I don't know if the program ever did, because, I would apply every year to direct for things and I never got it. Because, as you guys know, like, it's super selective. Only 4 people will make the like main thesis films 480s every semester. Only a handful of people do the TV thing. And I, the whole time I was at the school, I'm like, well, I want to be a director. So I would throw myself in the ring for all that stuff. And I never got any of it. And so, like, there definitely was a point, in the middle towards the end of school where I was just like, I don't know, like, I just thought nothing was going to work out, and that maybe the school just like was trying to tell me something, but then I had to step away from it and like, I'm like, yeah, I can just do it on my own. And there's so many people out there and so many things to do. So I've enjoyed being at school. I don't know. I didn't get to direct anything though at USC. I did one thing. I did the 310 project. But that's zombies. Yeah. It's the only thing. It's crazy to think that's the only thing I've directed in 4 years.
For USC.
Yeah.
Well, I remember my freshman year when you were my assigned big, that you gave me a piece of advice that it was to focus on the things outside of school, like your independent projects, and not put like all your eggs into the basket of like this stuff for class. And I think I really took that to heart, making like Missing at Sea and then Teenhood after that, like outside of school. And I do think it is so much more valuable to be spending your time making things that, like, first of all, belongs to you, but also you have actual control over. A lot of for example, the 480s and stuff at school, it's like they do it just to make you learn, but not to do it to make the best thing possible. Yeah. So I really respected that advice from my freshman year. And when you told me that, you were, first of all, like, making your films, and it was the Love Bugs, the Snail movie, which is honestly such a creative film. And watching it, like, every year, I would watch it, visit it sometimes, and it's like there's so much hidden details, so much themes into it. And I would love to hear, like, how did you come up with the idea of, miniature city with snails, telling a story about a grieving guy,
It was one of those things where I think I was a little bit delusional about what I could do, because I had just gotten into film school. It was my freshman year, and I really, really just wanted to make something. And I had applied to this grant through this organization called Young Arts, and they gave me $3,500 to make a short film. And I remember I was like, this is the most money I've ever had. I've never seen that number before in like my account, and it was crazy. I'm like, a freshman in college, and I was like, I could make anything I want with $3,500, which I'm like, looking back, it's just like, you can't do anything. That's like, a couple days of lunch on some of these things. And but I didn't feel that way, and so I just started building these sets. I called everybody I knew. I was calling in every favor possible. And I think the idea for the film, I mean, I love miniatures, was kind of the first thing where I'm like, I just knew I wanted to build something. I wanted to do set building and make a city out of it. And I had this loose idea in my head of like all these bugs living in a house the day it gets fumigated. And it started there, and then I kind of whittled it down to the simplest form, just because there was no way for me to shoot. Like, this was like a Pixar level story of like, I'm not going to be able to have all these different bugs and they're talking to each other. But I realized if I could get, one really strong character out of that idea, and it was the snail who's writing a book, and just kind of make like a relatively simple story about him connecting with his son because he's been reincarnated into the walls, and it's just kind of like a fun thing to make. And like you said, you know, at the school we go to, if you make something at USC, they own the copyright, and I was just very nervous about putting a lot of time and effort into something that I couldn't do anything with. So I was like really fixated on like, I want to make something outside of school. It was like, you know, 4 months in my garage building the sets, only 4 days to shoot it, and then, you know, all the editing and festivals and all that stuff.
Dude, that's one of the coolest films. You know, it's awesome.
Thank you.
And like you said, that was like probably the biggest project you've gotten to make at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
What was like the biggest challenge that you faced, and like what was the biggest lesson that you learned from going through pre-production to getting the film made?
The pre-production was almost the easy part because I was so excited to do it, which I think I'm learning now. It's like, it's a good sign. If you're getting hit with a lot of frustration before you even made it, I've kind of realized like that might be a sign that something in your story isn't working. But for that, you know, I was building the sets, I was really into it. I think I got really intimidated the first day I was on set because I had called all these favors in. I had a lot of friends who were a bit older than me, had a lot of connections and equipment and people, and suddenly it's the first day of shooting. I show up and you know, I'm directing the project and I get there 15 minutes early, but we have, you know, grips who've been working in the industry for a while, so they're there like 30 minutes early, and everyone's there before me, and I remember very clearly. It was almost traumatizing, and it's also fine to, if you're a director, you don't have to be that early, but it was funny because I was like, I just hadn't really realized that, and it was like, my whole crew's here before me, and it like freaked me out. And there were so many people. I like to me, it was so many people. We had like a 29 person crew for that weekend, and suddenly I was in charge of everybody, and it felt really real. And getting that first shot, you know, it took us like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to set up the first shot, and then we did 2 takes of it, and then I was like, yeah, that's it. Let's keep going.
That's awesome.
And that was like, I think that was the biggest like jump and drop in my heart rate. Was like, I don't need another take. That second one was great, and we have the first one if there's a problem with it. And I'm like, I've just decided, I was like, I'm not gonna be nervous, and you know, because I've seen it on other sets where it's like, oh, let's just do it again. I'm like, I didn't feel like I needed to, so I just didn't. And then I for some reason that like made me very confident for the rest of the shoot.
That's great.
But it was terrifying. Like the first 2 hours, I was like freaking out.
Dude, I feel like it's always like that. It's like that first project. Like once you get that first shot in, it's like so much more.
Yeah, and everyone just kind of learns how to work with each other too, to set the next shot, and then just to kind of find the rhythm of everything.
So Teddy, your film features a snail as the main character. How did you direct it?
We had long conversations about the motivation for the character and how I wanted him to play it. I mean, it was really funny. I realized like early on, like, I'll just do a real snail. I thought maybe it'd be stop motion, and then like the snail's not going to run away. Like it'll just sit wherever we put it. Yeah. It was not that simple. I had worked on this commercial gig, and there was a guy there who was an animal wrangler, and he had wrangled the Aflac duck, was like his claim to fame. Oh my God. I just thought it was hilarious. That's like famous animal wrangler. Yeah. And I just, you know, on lunch, I was like, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I have this project I want to make, and I have snails that I want to be part of it. Like, I don't know if you have any advice. And he's like, oh yeah, I've worked with plenty of snails. Wow. And he was just telling me, like, you need to get a bunch. You can't just have one, because it could go into its shell, or you don't know what's going to happen. You could hit a speed bump on the way there and it flies out the window. And that you need to spend time, because snails, you know, their brains are like this, you know, half the size of a sunflower, and it's like a mucous membrane. So it's like they don't really, you know, think about things, but they have slightly different personalities. And so I got 4 snails. I kept them I raised them. I mean, they were literally this big when I first got them. And I raised them for 4 months as I was building the miniatures. And I took notes on their personalities, just meaning like one of them would always climb. When I put it in the terrarium, when I touched it, it would just climb straight up. Another one always went into its shell. Yeah. There's one that never really moved around. So they had like kind of different quirks. And so I just kind of, made sure to remember who was who based on like little marks on their shell and their size. And when it got down to shooting, there's a scene where he just needs to sit on the couch. So I'm like, I just grabbed the snail that never goes anywhere. Yeah. He's the one that sits on the couch. There's another scene where I wanted him to drink out of this cup. Mm-hmm. So I got the snail that's always climbing and I put him down. And there's my favorite shot is he's sitting on the bar stool and he just reaches his head up and starts drinking out of this glass.
That's so sick.
And we had I also would take a cucumber and just because they loved eating cucumber. So I would just put cucumber all over the set, rub all the props. And they just loved it. They would just crawl around everywhere.
Right. And you had such an impressive set. How did you design it and how was the build process like for you?
A lot of throwing things away. So what originally happened was I got this grant and I thought the first thing I was going to do was hire somebody to build the sets. And I started talking to people and every person, they gave me a budget and it was twice the size of the grant that I had that I wanted to make the entire film with. And so very quickly I was like, this just isn't going to work. I'm going to have to do this myself. And I started building sets. So I would take some base materials and some stuff was kit bash things that I got from dollhouses, other things I built from clay or from cardboard, paper mache. And I realized as I was building the sets, I was getting better at it. But then I would go back to the earlier ones and they just looked terrible. So I was literally making things. And as I was building more sets, I was trashing the ones I had made before. And it was kind of like the snake eating its own tail. I just would only have one set at a time because every time I finished something, the other one looked a lot worse. Until a certain point, I kind of it took months. I got in a rhythm of things and most of the sets that are in the film I built in that last month. Even though I'd spent 3 months building other stuff. Right. And until it just it felt right and looked good.
And you were doing it while going to class and stuff?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
I would drive from USC to my mom's house and I was building in the garage.
That's awesome.
I kind of lived there. I kind of abandoned my social life at school to go back to my mom's house and start building stuff in the garage, which if you had told me when I was moving into college that I would do that, I would have been so upset with myself.
Right. But you made such a wonderful film. And I think that's what it takes,
Yeah, absolutely. Did you how was it working with those snails in live action, people? Because the film does feature human beings as well. So I was wondering, what was the biggest difference working with human actors and having to base a shot on a snail?
Well, I think I learned a couple things while I was building sets for the snail scenes. I realized how intentional I could be about color and lighting. And it's where are the light sources in this room? When we were building the library and I was talking with my DP through the whole thing of where's the light going to come from? What color should this thing be? Because I could control everything. And then when we got to the real world, it was kind of this moment where I was I think normally I would just show up somewhere and leave everything where it was and just shoot it because I literally just came out of high school. And I think that experience of being really intentional with one part of the film, I was well, I'm not going to do that with the other part. So all the real life stuff, there's just a lot of time and thinking went into how we were going to set things up. It was honestly a lot more intimidating to shoot that because, the crew was bigger and I was directing an actor in front of everybody, which to me is your sacred obligation as a director is that moment where you call cut, and then you walk up and you suggest a change for something, and it's like kind of nerve-wracking a little bit, at least that first day, where I was like, yeah, there's a lot more people watching me than I'm used to.
I mean, I think you blended it so well. Was that always the intention, to cut back and forth between the miniature world and the adult world?
The adult world. Yeah, I mean, it changed a bit, like the structure of it, but that was always the idea. It was like, I kind of wanted a short that opened and kind of, because it's like 3 or 4 minutes until you go into the real world. So I wanted to maybe feel like, okay, we're just with the bugs, and it'd be a little bit of a surprise that, okay, there's people here too. Well, what's the connection? And then, you know, I think just the act of having 2 stories in a film, automatically people are like, okay, well, how do they meet each other? And then so hopefully giving people like a good surprise towards the end of the film of like how they're connected.
Right. And I love like the way it did come together. There's like a twist at the end. That's super cool. I feel like with a lot of your films, it is usually set in a very like fantasy world almost. Crazy things be happening, like frat zombies from outer space, a dude turning into a goat, snails in a little town in someone's like wall. Is that like kind of a style that you kind of intentionally go for, or is that just happens to be something that comes out of every time you make a movie?
I think of the stuff I like to watch, and it always feels like a world I haven't lived in. And I love like verite movies and stuff, but I just don't, I'm not excited enough to like be like, I'm gonna make a movie about exactly what happened to me on this day or whatever. Like I think sometimes it's a lot more powerful and a lot easier to tell a personal story by kind of twisting it into something fantastical. And if anything, it helps people relate to it. And it's the same thing with like, you know, it's not on purpose that all these things have animals in them, but it is something that keeps coming up. And I think if I had to find a reason for it, it's like, it's the same reason when you're a kid, all the stories you read, like they have animals as characters, and it's a really easy way to project like your feelings as a person sometimes onto a creature or onto something fantastical, rather than me saying, yeah, I want to make a film about grief and loss and change, and it's just going to be a really sad guy who's really upset, he's crying in the shower the whole time. And you know, you could make that, and there's a lot of films like that that are very powerful, but for me it's like I had these feelings and things I wanted to talk about, and it just always felt like the best way to do it is through something that's just like a little weird and fantastical.
And how do you go about like retaining that kind of emotional truth while also chasing after that kind of magical feeling or that magical element? Like, how do you blend the magical and the realism of it together?
I don't really personally subscribe to the idea that you need to have a mission behind your film. And I know, like, especially, I'm someone who I'm always applying to grants, I'm submitting to film festivals, I'm filling out questionnaires all the time, and almost every program as a filmmaker or someone with a film that you want to go to, one of the questions is like, why are you making this film? Why is it important? And I'm like, I don't know. If you think about the movies you love, you would be embarrassed most of the time to go to the filmmaker and be like, why was it important for you to make this movie? It's just like, good stories are good stories, and I think you're gonna find a deeper truth even if it wasn't on purpose for it to be there. Because if you let your mind take you places and you kind of be creative about things, and this is for, you know, all the great movies too, it's like a lot of these like artistic truths and like important things, they're not there because someone said, I need to make a great metaphor for this thing. It's usually, this idea sounds really interesting, and then you realize at some point, you're like, oh my god, that idea I had, this image I really liked, is my relationship with my parents or my feelings about this political thing. And And so I don't know, I'm getting maybe a little bit off topic of what you said, but that there's always that question is like, why are you making this? Why is this important? And like, I never feel like I can answer it honestly, because it's always like, I made this because I came up with the idea and I liked it. And I would be lying if I said, I explicitly wanted to make a movie about grief. I wanted to make a movie about bugs. And halfway through developing it, I realized like I'm telling a story about my own feelings. But that just came subconsciously.
Right. Speaking of like coming up with ideas and then committing to them, like how do you go about finding ideas first and foremost, but also knowing which ones to like commit to? Because I'm sure as like creators and filmmakers, we have tons of ideas all the time, and how do you narrow down to the one or two and then really put all of your energy into them?
I think it's like there's just this point that I can't really describe where I can see it all in front of me and I can understand how I'm going to make it. Not every detail of it. There's always going to be like questions. But whenever I hit a point with an idea I really love where I'm like, yeah, that's how we're going to shoot it. This is how it's going to happen. I can find a way to get those resources. Like it's just kind of a light bulb moment. But in order to get there, you got to be generating ideas. So it's like, it never hurts to like think really big. And like, I feel like everything I've done started as a much bigger idea that I had to cut down, which is also why it's like, whenever I'm editing, I just like, I hate everything that I shoot, cause I'm like, it's not what I wanted. But, you have to, like shoot for the moon. And if you miss, you'll land among the stars, I guess. You just have to visualize it. Yeah. And don't make things out of vanity. Because you're just going to waste your money.
I am curious because you always have so many creative ideas, so many like fantastical ideas too. And what is your approach to coming up with these ideas? Do you like meditate, go on walks, journal? Like, what are your ways of helping you come up with these ideas?
I just write stuff down. If you open my notes app, there are thousands, maybe even 10,000 individual notes that are in there. And some of these notes are pages and pages long, because I literally, even like if I overhear a sentence someone said on the metro that I thought was vaguely interesting, like I take out my phone and I write it down. And I used to do transcripts of conversations I had in Ubers, and then that felt like ethically problematic. There isn't like a thing that I do where it's like, yeah, an idea always comes to me if I do this. I think it's just like, if you're collecting enough information in the world around you, you're going to be able to internalize that and like find a story.
And I do wonder that Uber idea was super interesting. Like, what was that to help you with?
No, I don't know. I wonder if you guys will relate to this, because so far nobody has. When Uber like first started, I was like a freshman in high school, I think, or at least when Uber like started getting big, and it was kind of like revolutionary. It's like, I don't need to ask my parents to take me somewhere. If I like save up money, I can make plans and I can get a car. I mean, it was like $10 to go anywhere when they first launched. And, I would and I went to school really far away. I had to take 2 trains to get to school. And I was just like, my whole life was very disconnected from like where my family lived. So I was kind of always just going around random places. I was out till really late. And I would take a lot of Ubers, and I would always sit in the front seat, and I would always talk to the people. And that's like, you can't do, like, the Uber driver is going to shoot you if you do that now, and nobody wants to talk anymore. And I remember like, I was like, well, this person's driving me, and I'm going to get dinner. I should invite them to come with me. And I would like invite my Uber drivers, like every time I was getting food. So I would get like dinner with my Uber drivers. We'd like hang out. Or like, I remember one time, like my Uber driver, like I really wanted a pack of cigarettes, and I had like a fake ID. So I got like cigarettes for my Uber driver. And, and I would sometimes surreptitiously record the conversations, not to do anything with, but just to get, like, I had this transcript app, and just like to find little things that we talked about, and like, you know, sentences that were really interesting, because I feel like I'm not great at writing dialogue. So sometimes I just like to steal like real things that people said. And you know, like just hearing about people's lives. I don't think that I never made anything that directly came out of like those experiences, but I'm sure that one day I'm going to be writing a character and be like, that's the Uber driver.
Yeah.
This one guy was my Uber driver, and he was like, yeah, you know, I always wanted to go into Hollywood, but they told me my hands were too small. And I just remember looking over, and his hands were so small. Where I was like, in my head, I was like, there's no way having small hands could possibly disqualify you from a career. And then it's just like really small. I don't know.
Damn.
I just like kind of have that image in my head of like, yeah, some guy who's like really down on himself because he wanted to be a model, but would have to do hand replacements. Like he was saying, he's a very like good looking person, but he did a shoot and they had to have a hand model stand in for him.
No, that is so interesting.
But honestly, I relate to that because I feel like some Uber drivers have really interesting stories.
Yeah, completely.
Would you ever drive Uber to pay bills?
Well, yeah. What do you mean? That's my post-grad plan.
Wait, actually? Oh, okay.
I mean, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get there. But I feel like it's not like I feel like it's a thing I'm nostalgic about that no one else is, which maybe just means that I was not doing it the right way. Cause like I remember this era of like I would have like big conversations with the Uber drivers and like really get to know them, and like there were all these interesting stories, and I feel like now like the culture is like you just get in the car, nobody talks, it's very awkward. And then I try to make conversations, but no one ever. I guess it's just like the last decade has been so oppressive on everyone's psyche.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's interesting. I never knew there was a time where Uber drivers were like all that talkative. I don't know.
It depends. For me, it's like I would say like, hey, hello, how are you? And if they don't like reciprocate more than just that, then I like don't proactively talk to them.
Yeah.
But if they're like, how's your day? Like, what like, how's your day? And I'll just like get into that. And if they're open to a conversation, I would
That's true.
also like talk to them as well. So it really, it's like, for me, it's a case by case. But I wanted to just building off of that, like that it's such like a specific way that you draw inspiration from. Like, how do you go about going through your daily life and having that creative sort of opening almost in your mind that's curious, and also looking at things from like a very curious perspective? Like, how do you go about going your day with that in mind?
I mean, I think it's probably just better for you to try not to think about. I mean, I guess like I just talked to you about how I was always writing stuff down, but at the same time, it's like you don't want to go into anything in your social life with like an agenda that somehow it's going to inspire you, or you're gonna, because I do know that there are some people who they think their life is plot driven, and they do crazy things just for the hell of it, which I don't know if I should recommend that, but you know, I think like if you just if you live curiously, you're gonna find things, and if you're interested, you know, if you want to learn history or read good books or hang out with interesting people or talk to your Uber drivers, you're just gonna get stuff out of it. It's not necessarily like a thing that happens on purpose. And you know, it's like James Cameron was like a truck driver, you know, for a bunch of years, and for some reason like a submarine expert, and like all these things that had nothing to do with filmmaking. And then he would just come back and make Avatar, and then disappear again, and then have more submarine rides, and then, you know, I think if you diversify like your life experience, it's a good thing. I mean, I'm saying this as a 23-year-old, so what do I know? But it's my feeling.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan Coogler, he played football in college.
Yeah.
And was also worked at a prison or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Which is nuts. But yeah, I totally agree. I love that curiosity. Do you think curiosity is something that can be learned, or is that something you're born with?
I think it can definitely be learned. I think anything can be learned. As far as like nature versus nurture, like I'm much more of a nurture minded person, because I think like everyone has something really special that they're really great at, but not everybody has the opportunity to even learn what it is. So I think like on a nature level, different people might have different skills, but you know, just because you were never drawn to art, or you know, you never wanted to paint, you don't like music, you don't like film, that doesn't mean you're not incredibly curious about something.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has that within them. It's just sometimes I got very lucky because I grew up in Los Angeles for most of my life, and I think that thing was like storytelling. So it was really easy to like imagine myself doing that. So I didn't have like a big internal struggle about it. And then there's people, you know, like people grow up all over the world who like, I want to be an actor, I want to be a filmmaker. That's like the story, they come here. But then there's also like my brother, for example, like he had a very similar childhood to me. But he was like, I want to live off the land and travel the world. And he's in the Peace Corps now. And he has like a backpack. That's like all of his possessions are just there. And he's in like rural Thailand teaching English. So, you know, I think like by nature people are different, but curiosity is like everyone can have that. It just might not be towards art.
Right. Wow. Would you want to do what your brother does?
Oh, hell no. No. My brother right now, he sent me this video. He was based in Thailand, but he'd been going all over the place. He was in Tibet. He was just in Kenya, and he hiked up this mountain, and there were a bunch of gorillas there. Oh my God. And he sent me this video of like a silverback walking right past him. And, you know, for him, it was like this incredible thing. I'm like, that's terrifying to me. I'm like a mildly adventurous person, but I'm actually really terrified of like gorillas specifically, because like I've just like, you know, you can't look them in the eyes.
Right.
You have to like look at the floor, and they're gonna come up, and like, you know, the video he had, like he was just standing like right over my brother, just kind of looking around, and the gorilla's like picking his nose, and I'm just like, oh God, like I can't. For him, that's like the best experience ever. For me, that'd be like an actual horror movie.
Right. Oh my God.
So
that's nuts.
I'm comfortable where I am.
Yeah. Well, back to some of your films. Old Goat was an incredible movie about someone turning into a goat and the family dealing with that. What was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, that was well, I mean, like I said before, it just started as an image in my head of this young girl taking care of a monster in her house, and it kind of turned into, I'm like, yeah, this could be like a kind of goat monster, and he's eating food out of the fridge, and she like does origami with him, and they watch TV together, and I just like was like, that's like, there's something really interesting there. And I think as I was fleshing the idea out, I realized, I'm like, well, this frail monster she's taking care of, like that's her grandparent. That makes sense. And then the family, and I bring in the family, and they're having a hard time. And then I literally realized, like halfway through making the script, I'm like, my grandma had dementia, and so I never met my grandparents on my mom's side. My grandpa on my dad's side died when I was really young, so I really only knew one grandparent, and it was my grandma, and she had dementia my whole life. So she never knew who I was. She knew who my brothers were, and she knew who my parents were, but I would walk into the room every time she had to be reminded. She was never lucid, and it was a big struggle to like take care of her. And the script was like almost done at that point, but then I was just like, it's not even, I didn't even feel like I made it up after the fact. I'm like, yeah, I think that's what I was thinking about the whole time. I just never I just didn't connect it
Yeah.
until a lot of the pieces were together. And so, you know, that's like the heart of it, is like that experience of like caring for somebody who's aging, and there's a breakdown in communication. It's almost like they've become, you know, an animal, and you have to send them out to the farm. And that we put my grandma in this retirement home specifically to care for people with dementia. And I just remember going there when I was a kid, and it was so traumatized. It was like so scary. And I kind of wanted to capture that feeling of like, you know, when you go to the farm and it's just like really overwhelming. But there is still something like beautiful about getting old and like leaving, you know, a family behind.
Right. Is it in festivals right now, or?
Yeah, it's it just premiered at a festival in Seattle called Nifty. Which is really, really great festival, and I've been there a bunch of times. And they're great because they're specifically for younger filmmakers. But honestly, like the stuff there is so fun to watch, and it's so good. And you know, because now I've been to Sundance and Tribeca and all these other festivals, and there's a lot of great stuff there. But the kind of creative stuff that I saw at Nifty specifically was just like way more fun to watch. And I think that probably comes from just like you put a bunch of really young people if you're under 26, you can go to the festival. And it's just like the stories just have like so much more energy. Even if they're not all like, you know, by acclaimed directors necessarily.
Well, I'm assuming like that's kind of also their style. They want the fun, kind of out there, creative projects.
Yeah, definitely. And then Olgo it got into some other festivals, which I'm still under embargo. So I can't say on a podcast. I'll tell you after though.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna do some other screenings.
That's sick.
So we'll get a tour going.
That's awesome. And speaking of festivals, that's such a large part of like navigating the industry, but also spreading your work and allowing like an audience to see it in a theater space and then talk about it after and network. Like, how do you go about festivals in general, from submitting to attending, and then maybe after attending, maybe you've built a community there that can sustain your career? How do you navigate that space?
Festivals, not to make it about money, but they're expensive. And you know, nowadays it's like $60 to $80 to submit to these festivals. And how many are you going to send it to? There's never any guarantee that you're going to get in anywhere. So you have to be, at least I've learned that you have to be as surgical as you can, and learn a lot about a festival before you submit to it. Have a good spreadsheet, keep organized, talk to people who know, like, you know, find people who've done festivals and get their advice. Because it's so easy to just burn through so much money submitting around. And I got very good advice from people, and I got help submitting to places, and Love Bugs has played at like 40, 50 festivals, which is like insane. And at a certain point, if you do enough, smaller festivals will start inviting you.
That's right.
And so I got a lot of invitations to come to festivals as well. And you're going to meet people there. Some of the people, like Nifty is a place where I met people that I would go on to work with. Sundance, I met a lot of people there, and I didn't meet anyone at Tribeca. They were really antisocial for some reason. I don't know. You just have a good time. And if you have a film in the festival, you know, make people excited about it. Because in a funny way, and this probably goes for most things in life, people's perception of your film and you are tied very closely together. And if you're just making a great impression and hanging out with people and making friends, but your film sucks, they're probably gonna, when they think about it weeks from then, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, that person, good film, whatever. Like, but on the other side, and I may or may not have seen this, you can just be a dick and everyone hates you. And you piss people off at the festival, and you have probably the best film there, but people are not interested in it because festivals are very social. And so it's just as important to just like be a good version of yourself there, as well as like having a good film.
What would be your like one advice for someone who's just made their first short film submitting to festivals, and what would be another advice for someone attending festivals for the first time?
Yeah. I think for the submitting, it's definitely like do research on the festivals. And I mean, if money's no object, congratulations. You should also email me and see about funding another project. But if you're concerned about cost, it gets so expensive to do it. Do your research, submit. It's like it's very tempting to be like, submit to South by, Tribeca, Sundance, Palm Springs, like all these big festivals. But they're also getting 10,000 submissions every year, and maybe your film is just not something that they would program, or maybe your film belongs at like a comedy festival or a sci-fi festival or fantasy. Like you can be really targeted. There's way more stuff than you think, and you'd be surprised at what festivals really get people to turn out to come to them and what festivals don't. Like some festivals is really hard to meet people. Like I kind of felt like Tribeca, for how big it is and like how legendary it is as a festival, it's like very difficult to meet people, and didn't have, and it's also because it's in the middle of New York City. It's like that's also part of it. It's like kind of hard to find anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when you're attending a festival, kind of the same thing I said before. Just like make a good impression with people. Your film is gonna almost matter less than you at a certain point. If your goal is to meet people who you can work with or like make connections with, or not bad film, but if your film isn't the best one there, that's completely forgivable. But if you are an ass, that's unforgivable.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when you went to my class at the film festival like unit, you were talking about the zines you made and how you distributed at Sundance. What was the aftermath of, giving them out to everyone?
It's honestly like it's a weird thing because I just had this idea. I was going to Sundance with a fellowship, and they were just telling me like, make a bunch of business cards, get ready to network with people, and you tell them about yourself. And I just like was trying to design a business card, and it just felt like it literally felt like the American Psycho scene where I'm like great, I'm showing up to a festival where everyone else has a cool mine's gonna look like a film strip. I'm gonna look like every loser at Sundance that put a film strip on their business card. And then I just kind of had this bizarre idea to like I used to like making these little zines in class where you take like a piece of paper and fold it a bunch of times. I was like, I should just make one of those, but like really dress it up, and so that I can just give people something that shows them the film rather than me sounding like a lunatic and trying to explain everything. And should I show it off?
Yeah, for those who are watching on here.
Due to that camera.
This one right here. So yeah, it's basically my business card. Now I have enough of these printed now where I can just hand them out to people. But it looks like this when you open it up. It has scenes from a bunch of my films, and it also has like plot synopsis and stuff, so you can kind of learn about the projects. There's some fun pages, like some double spreads, where you get to see like some of the environments. And my favorite page in here is the poster for my 310, which is called Frat Zombies from Outer Space. But it was just like it was a really effective way to just give people something, immediately let them know. And the aftermath, I mean, I was like leaving them at like cafes and stuff. So, there was like one guy emailed me because my email is in there, and he was like, dude, I found this booklet. It was really cool. Your work looks awesome. Do you want to come to our private event tonight? So I went to this really sick party at Sundance just because somebody found it on like a bench. And it was like a good, at the festival it was good to meet people. I gave it to some people, just some people at some, major agencies. And then one of them was really interested and was like, can I have 50 of them? So I'm like, Then I was freaking out because I'd run out. But my friend Max has a print shop, and he was like, I'll help you out. And so we had printed like 100 of them basically, and I brought 50 of them to this agency, and it was like literally a couple days later, like, do you have more? And
Wow.
Yeah.
and a friend of mine who works at a different agency, not that one, said he was bringing coffee to his boss, and his boss was watching my film on his computer.
Oh my God.
Who's like one of the executives at this talent company. And it was just funny because like it was so, I just had no idea how I was going to get my work in front of anybody, and I realized like this isn't like a way that I can get a bunch of people to watch something, but it was just good enough for like if I'm in the right place, if I'm at Sundance or I'm meeting with people from agencies or production companies, it's like it was something memorable enough where I'm like, people will talk about it to other people.
Wow, yeah.
So it's been a really good thing, and it's also just like a way for me to, share my work directly with someone without them like having to jump through the hoops of like, oh, I got to scan a QR code on a business card and go to the website and decide what to watch. It's like it's all in there.
Yeah, dude, it's wonderful. I think. What was the inspiration behind it? Like, do you see anyone else do it, or is that like just based on your childhood?
No, I don't think I've seen. I mean, people make zines. Like, I am a big zine fan, but mostly it's they're only like 8 pages long, and it'll be like a comic strip or something you're working on, and those are always really cool to me. And I used to make some in high school, and my friends would make them that were like way better than mine. It's usually like a hand-drawn thing. This is 42 pages. It was way longer than it needs to be, honestly, but I just kind of kept putting stuff in there. And like professionally printed, like mass produced, which is kind of like my angle on it. Was like, it's more of a, I think maybe the thing that inspired me the most was I went to Netflix once at their headquarters, and they have these magazines. They're not like full size, they're like smaller magazines that are just like 50-page catalogs of the quarter at Netflix and what projects are coming out. There's one page is a little interview with Pedro Pascal. The next page is a double spread of Stranger Things, and it was like, I just thought it was really cool. And they literally just put them in the office. I don't even know if they put them anywhere else. So that was probably the thing that most directly was like, I really like it. Was just fun to read. So I'm like, I want to make something that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's sick. And Teddy, you've been on so many different sets, working on different projects on various roles. What are some of your favorite, like most memorable sets that you've been on?
My side hustle kind of is ADing. And so I've gotten to do a lot of fun stuff. I mean, the Doritos commercial.
Yeah.
I got to AD for Zach and Ryan, and that was a great set because that felt like we were taking over. It's like these are all just like young people. We're all friends, but we're making something, taking it really seriously, and then like watching that commercial like go out into the world and like all the millions of people that saw it was like, that was crazy. And then I worked on a video with one of my favorite directors, Robert Rodriguez. And I was like, just kind of like managing the background, a lot of logistical stuff, and like but we had a bunch of people, like we had like 20 zombies probably, and then like on top of that there were like 30-40 people in background, and so he's directing the main action, and then I'm like, when we have all these big background scenes, I'm stepping in and I'm like talking to all them, and I'm giving them direction on what to do. And it was kind of like the project like came together like super fast. So it was only like halfway through shooting it, I realized I'm like I read this guy's book and I watched all of his stuff, and it's crazy because I'm like literally standing right next to him. We're doing all this stuff, and a lot of that crew like were very like veteran people, and that was like a really cool learning experience because it was a really interesting mesh of like young filmmakers like just graduated and then like really established You know, like, you know, our stunt people, like I knew who they were. I knew who the makeup people were. That was the funniest thing. Where I'm like, I'm reading these names. I'm like, oh my god, these guys do everything.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it's really cool.
Yeah, and speaking of like working on set, for one of the responsibilities of the first AD is to basically manage different departments and making sure that the production is going smoothly.
Yeah.
What made you explore that position, and what's your experience been like so far working on different sets?
I want to be a director, obviously, and I write. And some professors will tell you, you need to start as a production assistant and you need to work your way up somehow. But then a lot of younger people will tell you, you need to direct music videos and direct, even if you're losing money, you know, for the first couple of years, or even if it's like, you know, bullshit work and like you don't enjoy it, or like you just need to direct and make that stuff. And I kind of realized that neither of those were appealing to me because I don't, you know, I'm not like a big music video person, and commercials are something I skip. And I wasn't finding myself very passionate about directing those, unless it was like, you know, something that made a lot of sense. But I love working on set. And so I kind of realized, I'm like, I will keep directing these things I've written. And I love narrative. I love working with actors. I love like putting through lines together and stories. I'd done a couple music videos. I did a commercial. And it was fun. Like I didn't have a bad time, but it was like, okay, yeah, like a music video, you have the artist, you have the label, you have management. Sometimes there's like other business people, and like suddenly there's like 8 people who have like an equal authority on what's happening. And it's not like I'm trying to be on a power trip. It's just really hard to make something in those circumstances. And so I kind of decided like I want to work on these sets. I think what I'm good at is I have a good understanding of collaboration, what needs to happen, how to keep people focused, the like limitations as well, and like working within them. And so I'm like, yeah, I could start ADing. And so that's something I started like sophomore year of college. And it was just like for school sets. And then I did it for 480 for the thesis. And it kind of turned into, you know, someone would ask me to do this thing and I do this thing. And then we did the Doritos thing. And some guy watched Doritos and was making a different commercial and hired me. And then it turned into like, this is like legit. And working with a lot of like celebrity clients too, which like when you're the AD, that's also part of the responsibility. Is like you have to take care of the talent. I mean, you know, normally I'll have a second and they'll be really good on that, but it's like I'm usually the first person to meet them at the door. They're on a recent shoot. I guess I don't know if I can't say who, but there was a big celebrity was coming, and I remember that was like, you know, when they were like, oh, this person's arriving right now. I gotta drop everything and I gotta be standing right there. And because like the whole day it's going crazy, I'm moving people around, we gotta do stuff, and I'm like, okay, this person's here, I gotta wait outside. Hello, I'm gonna show you everything. Here's my second AD. Oh, here's the introducing you to the director for the first time. You know, there's like all these weird responsibilities you end up having. That, and it kind of changes from set to set. It depends on like the size of what you're doing, because sometimes it's like the producer can handle that. But sometimes not.
And, you know, as first AD, and you are working with a bigger name person.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel intimidated by anyone, like someone of that status?
It's a weird thing. You just live in LA and like things happen, and I end up in a lot of situations where like I've just met a lot of people that I'm like, oh yeah, you're from TV, I've seen you before, and it's like not as shocking the second time and less so the third time. It's intimidating to work with somebody that you admire. Because when you work with anybody, inevitably there's a point where you might not agree on something, and not in a bad way. It's just like, oh, we should do this thing first. Maybe. What do you think about that? And that's like for ADing, that's where sometimes that comes up, where I'm like, if it's a director I really admire, or the label people or whoever, like, yeah, you have to step in and like offer stuff. And I think at the beginning, like, that was more intimidating to do with people that I was a fan of. But then it's like, you know, most people are just also just like artists who care about what they do.
Yeah.
And if you meet that odd person who, you know, the water's at a certain temperature and you can't look them in the eyes, like, yeah, just leave that person alone. It's like not worth it.
Cause I always see like on your Instagram stories, like every so often there's like someone I would know, and I'm like, whoa, that's so sick. And I do wonder, like, when you are meeting all these people and networking, like, what is your approach to like making all these connections and like, you know, building these friendships with people you meet on set?
Well, don't network with a talent. That's bad form. Okay. I've seen people oh my god, it makes me cringe. Luckily I don't have a horror story like that. But that is like, yeah, it's not an unspoken rule. I'd say it's like a spoken rule. It's just like, it doesn't matter if they're famous or not famous or whatever. You kind of like, you have to preserve your on-screen people. It's not because they're special snowflakes. It's just like, they're doing a lot of work and it takes a lot of focus and mental energy. And so it's like, yeah, don't try to network with them. But then like, you're working with the crew and you get to know people. Like, this is just like, you know, if you're at lunch, just ask them questions about themselves. I think it's really bad to, and this is like in general, it's not great to just show up and sit down and start talking about yourself. Be like, oh, I have this thing I want to do. Because it's like, yeah, people are like, I'm trying to eat, man, or like, I want to go home. Right. And that's not just when you're on set; it's just in general. But it's like, yeah, if you have questions for people, like my key grip that I had for Love Bugs, I had met him on a shoot for a commercial like earlier that year, and I was a production assistant. Like, they just brought me on. That was probably like the biggest set I'd seen up till that point, and he was the key grip, and he was really good. And I was like, I didn't understand what he was doing, and they needed this shot where we had a bunch of toilets, like stalls in a bathroom, and we needed a crane shot where we were over all the stalls and moving between them. But it was tough because there was only so much room in the ceiling. And so, you know, we're literally on set, and he was like going through, he had this notebook of all the stuff, and they were building the rig for everything and doing the counterweights, and they're working with the camera department and then the gaffer to get everything lit. And I just was like watching this, and I just thought it was so impressive. And so when we had like a little moment like right before lunch where it's like everyone was kind of wrapping up what they were doing, I just like went up to him and was like, I'm just like wondering, like, could I see that notebook you had? Like, I was really interested in like how you put that rig together. And he was so happy that I had asked him that. Some people might not be, and then you should maybe leave them alone. But like, he was like really excited to show it to me, and we talked it through, and it's like, yeah. And then we ended up talking to each other, and then somewhere down the line, it just like made sense for me to reach out to him, and he did me a huge favor and was the grip for this project. And because having someone like him there were shots that we could do that I probably wouldn't have been able to pull off, you know, if someone had like not that kind of experience.
Right. That's great. And do you like working on set like all the time, or do you ever feel like, you know, a little burnt out from being on set constantly? Because it is 12 hours a day, right?
I mean, I haven't burned out yet. I'm also not, I'm like, you know, I'm in school, and I think I can burn out in general, but I haven't been on a shoot yet that really did that to me. The longest I've ever consistently been on a set was 7 days straight. It was honestly, that was kind of brutal by the end, but also this really like beautiful thing happened that makes me excited about like features. Because like, so you do like a lot of these music videos or commercials or short form stuff, it's like 1 day, maybe 2 days, 3 days if you're crazy, 4 days if the budget's huge, but very rarely does it go longer than that. But then like we're there for 7 days together, and then we also had our pre-production meetings, and suddenly it's like, yeah, by day 4, 5, 6, like we like really know each other, and we were going out to dinner after the set, or like some of us were, and then like you kind of just like become like a really good unit. Or I guess you could also hate each other, but for us it was like this really cool thing where I'm like, by the last day it was like really sad kind of to like say goodbye to everybody. And it made me excited to work on longer form stuff, because I think for some, I know a lot of people hate long form and they can't, the hours and doing the same project over and over again. But for me it's like, yeah, like I just watched a whole movie basically. Like I just watched everything get shot and I got to know everyone involved.
That's awesome, dude. And what are your, because you're going to be graduating in like a week or two. What are your immediate plans coming out of school?
I guess like it's almost two different questions, because like what I am planning to do is a little more of the same, just like get my hours in, AD work, some directing work, you know, even though I just bashed on music videos and commercials, like I probably will end up doing some of that. But more than that, I have another short that I want to make this summer. I'm like really excited about it. It's way, way bigger than anything that I've done.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's going to be like a huge hill to climb, but I'm looking forward to it. And my friends and I have a production company. My friend Miguel founded a production company, and we have an office on the back lot at Universal. And so we've just been like meeting there, you know, talking about like feature concepts, and that's like a really exciting thing to just like be with people in, like, you're like on a studio and you're talking about feature films. And so I wrote a feature that I'm gonna be working really hard to make it happen. So I don't know, the plan is just like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I don't know what's gonna happen. You know, the money plan is like stick with the AD stuff, do commercial directing when it makes sense, and then, you know, I don't know, just find things, because I literally feel like every year my life has changed kind of dramatically in terms of like what my skills are, who I have worked with, and the kind of projects I'm on. You know, so I'm like, I don't want to make any assumptions about what is going to be happening next year, because I don't know.
Well, how do you like get yourself, like for the viewers who maybe are starting out and stuff, like if they wanted to get hired as like a first AD or director of music videos, and like go from like doing passion projects to like paid work, like how do they bridge that gap?
Well, I mean, it's two very different things if you want to crew on stuff versus you want to direct stuff. Because if you want to, like, I want to direct music videos, and I think that's awesome. I wish I was more excited about that. You just have to kind of do it. And I, like, a lot of people I know, they started with spec music videos or things they did with their friends. My friend is a musician. She makes cool stuff. We're gonna do a $0 music video, or honestly, you're gonna put, you know, money into it, and you're just gonna lose money, and then you do that, but then someone else watches it, and it kind of just like things build upon themselves. And so a lot of my friends who are directors, like that's kind of the common theme, and like the origin story of that is like you just keep making stuff and you're on that grind. For me, it's like that's not really the approach I took, just because I wanted to do short film. Like I've always wanted to make movies and like feature films. So for me, it was like, yeah, I want to do a short film, but it's such an involved it's like you can't do a cop out, and like you can't film someone singing for half of it. Like you have to like make the whole thing, and so it's literally like I could only do like one a year basically.
Right.
It just took, you know, at least for the stuff I was doing, it's like months of pre-production, and, you know, all the work that went into like the post and even pulling favors in post. But then if you want to crew on stuff, it's just like, I don't know, make friends with people who are making things, or people you admire, like reach out to people. You'd be surprised that even a very small set or something that seems insignificant, there's probably somebody there who works on bigger things. And then if you work on set with that person again, someone else will be there who works on bigger things, and that's like the ladder that you can climb. I don't really know about this whole studio thing, if it even exists anymore.
Right.
But there is a ladder to be climbed in terms of like one production to the next and just making friends.
Right. And like, making short films and like making like your own stuff, like, I don't know, when you just first start out, it would be tough to like pay the bills, especially living in LA, right? So like what is an approach for someone who is trying to start out freelancing to be able to pay the bills?
I guess it depends what you're doing and what your situation is, and I mean, I don't know how qualified I am to speak on it as like a current college student. I don't I cover all the expenses in my life, but soon to be once I graduate from this place.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, apply for grants. If you want to direct shorts, especially, think about like write something and then try to figure out who would want to support it instead of, I'm going to write a film with this subject matter, because there are organizations that will fund stuff like that. Like come up with ideas first and then try to seek out where you can get funding. And you'd be surprised. Like there's a lot of stuff out there. I don't know, maybe make some like rich friends who will help you out with stuff. As far as like, living expenses and whatever, it's not, even for very successful people, it's a hard industry to like make money in.
Yeah.
You're going to make more money being a barista than you will being a music video director at a certain point, at least for a while. And so like, and that's like, it's like more life experience. I think not everybody has the luxury of being able to work freelance and then just fuck around the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's there's a lot of great directors that I know who just had jobs for a long time, and then they found a way to make it work. Because you have to. I mean, I don't know, at a certain point you don't really have a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
But just as a thought experiment though, if in 1 year someone gives you randomly, you wake up and in your bank account there's $3 million and you're to make a feature film, what do you think the story would be?
Well, I would make. I would make the one that I wrote, which it's called Extinction, and I guess in a very simple explanation of it, it's a story about the end of the world, where all over the world entire species of animals are dying off, and it's kind of this mass extinction event that no one can explain, but the whole movie takes place almost entirely on one street, with these two neighbors in a small town, and kind of like how these two families are relating to each other at the end of the world, and the dads get kind of pitted against each other as everything crumbles around them. And so it's not like a expensive movie. It has like a bigger concept going on, and there's a lot of, it's not something you can make like for no money, but that was that's one of the reasons why after I came up with that idea, like I pursued it as like, yeah, this is the one that I'm going to finish writing, just because I'm like, this is the one where, if I wake up tomorrow morning and there's $3 million, or I wake up and there's a call from, a studio, like that's the one that I'm like, yeah, we could make this. Which is also, if maybe, well, I don't know if it's good advice because nothing's happened yet, but it feels like good advice to just have in your back pocket, like the stories that are important to you.
Right. Yeah. And what today, the industry is constantly changing, new technologies coming out. And I do want to hear your thoughts on artificial intelligence in film. And like, would you use ChatGPT to like generate ideas, or, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I definitely wouldn't use it to generate ideas. I think there's a line. I don't love AI, but I think it's very useful for some things. I think what you shouldn't be using it for is generating ideas or wholly generating anything visual. And I know a lot of people who, they're like, here's a project I directed with Sora AI. And I'm like, look, this is from my experience in that commercial world, in that music video world. I don't know if you're the director. I think you're the client, because what you did was you typed out a treatment of what you wanted, and you gave it to Sora, and Sora took it, interpreted it, and created something.
Right.
That's what a director does. So Sora did a great job directing your video. But I'm dubious of you saying that you directed it. I'm not saying you didn't come up with it. And it's the same thing in like the commercial world. You know, you get a big deck from a client, and it might be genius, and there's great ideas, and you're like, that was a great idea from this client. But they're not going to call themselves the director unless they're the ones directing it. So I think it's a bastardization of that word and that job title. To if you're fully prompting something. But then there's a lot of ways where it's like, if you are making something and you're, like, it's not everyone has 100 people in a basement that can do CGI. So it's like, if you are taking elements from like something AI generated and you're using it in your video, and there's, I've seen like a lot of really great stuff that people have done. It's like, I don't think that's that crazy, because it's like, we're all, there's kids on their computers doing things anyway. This is just like the step up from that. So that stuff makes sense. And I just worked with somebody on a project where this is so specific, but we needed to fill in this background, and we needed like shampoo bottles, and we were like trying to get stock pictures. And it just looked bad and weird. And it was so, we was like, why? I don't know. We just can't get this to look right. And we were literally like, well, just took a screenshot, went to Midjourney, and was like, put shampoo bottles in this environment, and it did. And we're like, hey, there you go. I'm not gonna be against AI just for the hell of it, but I do feel strongly like, if you're prompting things, especially, God help you if you're going into ChatGPT and saying, give me an idea for a project, and then you're taking that idea and then putting it into Sora and saying, make this video. I don't even know what you are. You're the mailroom assistant for your own film. You literally just delivered a message. And the crazy thing is, I know of people who have done exactly that. And I'm worried that is like a direction things are going. And I'm not saying it's like, it's like whatever, you can't stop people from doing that, but I don't know, maybe we need a union for the AIs so they can get directing credits.
One of the things for me with AI too is like, it's sometimes when you like combine different things together, something interesting could happen. And I've read this whole article about how AI can't really make art because it's not making as many decisions as an artist. Do you think we'll get to a point where you type a specific enough of a prompt, say like 7 to 8 paragraphs, really detailing each decision that you're trying to make, and it successfully delivers that? Do you think at that point creatives are going to really rely on AI, or is there going to be a future where like AI is separate from actual human creativity?
I mean, it's possible. I think like even now, if you're really, it's a little bit of luck, but it's also precision. Like people can prompt really compelling stuff from AI. It still has that tinge of like, most of the time it's like, you know what this is, but you can get stuff out of it. And it's like, I understand AI can only draw from things that have been made, but it's also like, so can people. I don't really buy into that side of the argument that AI can't make art. What I think is that it's the same reason, okay, if you have 2 scarves and they look very similar, but one, was made in a factory, and then one was hand knit, you're drawn to something that a person made. The same way that you're drawn to stories that your friend tells, or like you want to see your favorite actor in a movie. People are innately drawn to hearing things from people. And a movie is just like a heightened version of that. It's the heightened version of sitting at a campfire and listening to people. It's like, you like the idea that someone made it. It's like why people love practical effects in movies over something that they can tell is CGI. even if it doesn't look better, it's just like you like that feeling of like, oh man, that's what it looked like. That monster is a real thing, or like I could see the wire there. Like you're drawn to things because we have a deep, desperate desire to relate to other people. And so I'm not gonna say that AI couldn't make something better than a person can. I think in a lot of cases it will. I just think we're underestimating that people have a desire to talk to people, and that media and film is a version of doing that. And so, yeah, you can lie to people. You can put, on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, there's those like AI generated videos where it looks like people, but it's not.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, what people are going to want is to see movies and to consume media that's created by people. Maybe not everybody. I mean, it's going to get smaller, but that's where the real line is to me.
Yeah, I definitely hope there's a future where I think we can still really much create art that's human-centered and then tell that story to audiences that really respond to that. Because I think that's really where the magic is. And that's why we're all in this industry anyways, is to do it and to share it with people.
Yeah.
And something we do on this podcast is we have the previous guest leave the current guest a question. And the previous guest of this show left you a question asking, what's one thing you'd change about your life?
I think if I could change something, I would like to give myself like more worldly experiences. Like what I was talking to you about, like my brother going all over the place. Like I couldn't handle that. Like I couldn't be that person. But I think, and this is something I do want to find a way to change in my life. It's just like, I love camping, but I did the numbers and I only went camping like twice last year. So I'm like, that's crazy. I love being in the outdoors, but I only did it 2 times in an entire year. And I love traveling, but I only traveled once and it wasn't really even that far. And I think like I would love to have that in my life, because it's just like kind of sparks that thing for me that just gets me excited. It's like seeing new places, like going out to nature. I'm sure it's also just the nature of like being in college. Like my life is very dominated by like my immediate area. And so it's like, yeah, as much as I love South Central Los Angeles, like I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. What would be the first place you'd want to visit?
Oh, that's good. I've never been to Japan. I've always wanted to see Japan. I want to see India. I've never been to Africa. There's a lot of places I've never been to, honestly. Like I just kind of want to go all over the world. But if I could start, like I want to just take a huge trip and go somewhere, and it feels like maybe the way that's going to happen to me is at some point like through work. So hopefully I get to travel for something.
That's sick. I remember there's a story where the founder of Nike, when he got out of business school, he went and traveled around the whole world, and that's where he got the idea of selling shoes and stuff. So maybe a trip will be very inspiring for all of us.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sweet. Well, Teddy, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
This was very insightful, and I'm sure it's going to help so many people, find and figure out how to build a career in directing. So,
well, I'm glad I could be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course.